I think it's oversaturated to say that Sonic the Hedgehog is a series full of ups and downs. The classic games captured imagination in the 90s by truly expanding the concept of what a 2D platformer could be, using momentum as a tool for movement. On the other hand, there's obviously some sour spots within this series as well. Sonic 06 is often used as a benchmark for how broken and terrible a video game can get. You can just be walking around peacefully in this game and just fall through the floor. 06 is so broken that using your kick on this one box sends Sonic into the stratosphere for literally no reason at all. And for me, Sonic Forces is a unique low point in the series. Even Sonic 06 brings something new to the table, which this game just doesn't. It completely abandons the momentum roots of this series, which rewards players for building up their speed, and instead just resorts to boring level design and the worst execution of a system that they've been using for 3 games at this point. I have loathed this game since the day of its release 6 years ago, and I have not revisited it since. Until today, I decided to try 100% complete one of my least favourite games of all time. Why? Because I hate myself, that's why. Sonic Forces is an absolute nightmare of a game. I don't even know if I can call this a game. So let's explore it, level by level, as I complete Sonic Forces so you don't have to. Sonic is sort of famous for being whimsy and action-packed, so you expect a strong opener to the game. This game opens with the most bland menu screen of all time. It is literally just the interior of a building. But that's just a nitpick. Obviously, I don't have a real problem with a bad title screen. As long as the game is good, I'm sure everything will be just fine. But before we get into our speed action, the game lets us pick a normal or hard mode. In Sonic. In a platformer. How the hell do you even do that? Well, apparently, according to texts I found in the Great Library of Alexandria, Google, the difference is that normal mode caps your rings at 100, and you only lose 20 rings every time you get hit. Whereas in hard mode, rings are not capped, and you lose them all when you get hit, allowing you to take more hits in normal mode. But does that even make the game easier? In a game like this, you're not gonna get hit much, and I can't even remember the last time I died from having no rings in a Sonic game that uses this boost system. So there's absolutely no difference at all between the two versions. They might as well just not exist. Kinda like this game, budum. After making the most difficult choice in gaming history, it's time for the game to finally begin. This absolute masterpiece of storytelling starts with Eggman chatting some absolute waffle about his newest creation. I literally don't care. What is this creation? I suppose we'll find out later, and I guarantee you it will not be disappointing at all. It's first level time, and you will never guess what original idea they have chosen for the first level of this game. It's Green Hill Zone again. Ow. The use of this level is telling. You will notice it's a theme in this game that it cannot do anything new, it won't do anything creative, and everything it does do is something that Sonic has done before, but goddamn does it do it worse. Green Hill here is just not Green Hill Zone. Let's compare it to the best Green Hill Zones in history. Sonic 1, Sonic Generations, and Sonic Mania all feature Green Hill Zones that are lush and expansive. They feel like big open playgrounds for Sonic to run around in. This is his home, so it makes sense that it would be a place full of environment and pathways to explore, a place for Sonic to run fast and explore and run around and do tricks and be like, yeah, way past cool! But no, here it's just a hollow hallway. The environment isn't even pretty. This just doesn't feel like the Green Hill Zone we've come to know in other Sonic games. Also, I know this has been said 1 million times before, but why is Green Hill Zone even here in the first place? The aforementioned games earlier all suited having Green Hill Zone as their opening act. Sonic on the Sega Genesis was the first ever Sonic game, so this level sets the standard for what Sonic is and what he's all about. Generations and Mania both celebrate the history of the Sonic series, so it makes sense that the first Sonic level ever is the first level of these games. Here, Green Hill Zone just feels forced in because they couldn't think of a new level theme. The only plot in this level is that Sonic and Tails are using Green Hill Zone to travel to the city. Yes, the city in this game doesn't have a name. It's literally just called the city. So realistically, any level can be used here as long as it's next to the city. Back to my point, this is just a hallway. There are no branching paths. Enemies provide no threat at all. They just serve to stand there and be bowled over by Sonic using his boost. Oh, by the way, this is a Boost Sonic game. This is the 4th Boost Sonic game. Colors, Unleashed, and Generations came before this, and even though they've had 3 games to work on it, this is by far the worst Boost game of them all. The boosting in this game is very stiff. Sonic's controls and the level design is made specifically to cater for the boost. It's very hard to turn while boosting, and that means most levels are just a straight line until the level is over, occasionally broken up by little 2D sections that make me question if I ever even loved 2D platformers. The Wisps from Sonic Colors are back, and this time they serve a completely different purpose from what they did in their original game. Mainly for the custom character, but we will get to that later. Sonic, however, can pick up Wisps to fill his boost meter. I don't know why they chose to do this over it being tied to rings. Rings being tied to boost makes it actually a little more useful to collect them. Here, they're genuinely useless. Another reason I don't like this choice is because it just commits the game to being even more on rails than what it already is. 99% of players are going to boost as soon as you give them the meter to do so. And this game gives you the Wisps right before the big straight running sections, meaning that you never have to manage your boost meter, choosing the right time to boost to save more for later. They might as well just give Sonic an infinite boost, because you only boost when the game wants you to, and only when the game lets you boost. I have been talking about this level for much longer than the level actually lasts, by the way. This level is just over a minute long, you blink and you miss it, and most of the levels in the game are like this. There's still enough time to slip in some awful dialogue though.
Green Hill's looking a lot more like Sand Hill right now.
Anyway, I S-ranked the first stage, moving on. Sonic and Tails finally make it to the city, and meet our new villain, Infinite, who is Eggman's latest and greatest creation. We learn in the Shadow DLC that before he became Infinite, he was just a normal jackal, but all he is a jackal with the Phantom Ruby attached to him. So, Eggman is saying he created this guy, but as far as I can tell, he just mashed these two things together. Anyone can do that? Eggman's plans are a little more elaborate than just smashing a rock and an animal together and calling it a day. I don't know what he's doing here. Oh, and does this game ever explain what the Phantom Ruby is? No, not really, fuck you. Anyway, our new buddy with an Infinity Stone shoved up his ass is supported by some old fan favourite Sonic villains. And Zavok for some reason. Seriously, why does this guy show up in literally every Sonic game? Metal Sonic is back, which makes sense because it's been ages since he's been involved in a Sonic story. Shadow is evil again, which I'm sure this game has a valid, reasonable, and not undercooked reason for this happening. And oh my god, is that Chaos? I remember the build up to this game. I was there in the trenches with my comrades. This was the one we were excited about before the game came out. Chaos was about to be back in action for the first time in 20 years. And I'm not going to beat around the bush. I'm going to spoil it for you now. There is no boss fight against Chaos. He doesn't even make a single appearance in the gameplay of this game. If you skip all the cutscenes, you wouldn't even notice he was here. And to be honest, if you watch all the cutscenes, you might not even notice he's only in about 3 of them. Chaos was in so much of the promotional material for this game, just for him to do absolutely nothing at all. He was clearly an afterthought shoved in at the last minute to get this game more sales. Anyway, our ragtag group of Sonic villains from AliExpress proceed to fold Sonic's ass and Eggman takes over the world. Honestly, Eggman being in charge of the world at the start of a Sonic game and Sonic having to claim it back is a very interesting premise for a game. So the game skips forward a few months later and we get to see the wider cast of Sonic characters starting their own little resistance to gain the world back from Eggman. We got Knuckles, we got SBO, and oh my god, look, it's Silver, my sweet baby boy.
He's my best friend, he's my pal, he's my homeboy, my rotten soldier, he's my sweet cheese, my good time boy.
Anyway, these lot are all sad and mopey because everything's gone wrong, the world's gone to shit, and Sonic is dead. Oh, and the comedy does not stop there because Knuckles goes on to say that Tails has lost it. What do you mean he has lost it? Tails has gone off grid, grown out his hair, covertly infiltrated a neighbouring state, and he is about to commence the rumbling. But aside from being absolutely hilarious, this cutscene serves to introduce the custom character, which is this game's main gimmick. Make a custom character, and even you can become best friends with Sonic the Hedgehog. When it came to making my character, I wanted to make a woman, but the game wouldn't let me be a naked anthropomorphic animal, so I had to throw that idea out the window. So instead, I had to get a little more creative with my character. Ladies and gentlemen, meet Sonic 2, or Snock the Charg as we will call him from now on. Snock gets introduced to the gang, and despite having never met them before, Knuckles trusts him enough and hands them a gun. Why does no one else have a gun? Why won't the game let me see Amy with a Glock? And literally 3 minutes after Sonic has been declared missing, declared dead, Sonic is immediately pronounced alive and well again during one of these talking sections. By the way, these talking sections are horrible. They clearly didn't have the budget to cutscene everything. So because of that, they play by the golden rule of storytelling. Always tell, don't show. Anyway, apparently Sonic has been tortured for months. I honestly can't with this game. So after dealing with so much mess in so little cutscene, ladies and gentlemen, it is time for Snock's very first outing. During gameplay, the OC uses weapons called Wispons. They really put their top writers on that one. Anyway, the Wispons, as the name implies, are weapons based on a certain wisp. Like Sonic uses the normal wisp to fill his boost meter, the OC uses each different type of coloured wisp to give them special abilities. Unfortunately, unlike Sonic Colors, where you can pick up and use any wisp at any time, leading to clever level design built around the wisp's abilities, in this game you can only use the same wisp as the weapon you have equipped, and you have to equip the wisp before the level. For example, the default weapon is the burst wisp, and because of this, you cannot pick any other wisp in the level, so the level designs cannot be built around using the wisp's abilities to navigate. The wisps just feel slapped on top of the already mediocre levels. They are completely superfluous and make next to no difference on each level. Much like most of this game's attempts to do any basic level design, the wisps are completely useless. The rest of the OC's gameplay is literally just Sonic's again, without the boost, and with a weapon. And because of this weapon, the game puts way more enemies in your way. Yes, they are just there to be bowled over again. Older Sonic games had an emphasis on combat like this, and I quite enjoyed it. But the difference is, most of those enemies had more than 1 HP, and you didn't just see them stand there like a lemon. Not a single enemy attacks you with the intent to hurt you in this game. Pretty much every single non-boss enemy just stands there begging to be defeated to make the level seem busy. I fucked this level up and got an A. Moving on to the next stage, it starts with a cutscene that makes me genuinely upset. I know the Sonic continuity isn't something the games take as seriously these days because the games aren't sequels to each other like they once were, but in this scene, Tails is just a shell of the character he once was. Genuinely, hugely unlikable. Tails sees base chaos and starts shitting himself and crying out to Sonic, who, let me remind you, Tails believes is dead because he has not met up with the Resistance. The very same Tails whose entire arc in Sonic Adventure 1 was learning to stand on his own 2 feet and be a hero in his own right without Sonic there to carry him. The same Tails who literally fought Chaos 4 and won. Why the hell is he scared of Chaos Zero? You literally kicked his stronger form's ass 20 years ago. This should be no trouble for you. You melt. And just when I thought that this cutscene could not possibly get any worse.
What are you doing here? And not in a racist way.
And Tails says that classic Sonic is that Sonic from another dimension? He was from the past, literally 2 games ago. I am so fed up of Sega wheeling out classic Sonic every time they want to make some nostalgia sales, and unfortunately, it's time to play as him. This little arsehole controls like a brick. I want to put him in a blender. Every time he jumps, which, let me remind you, he is a 2D platforming character, jumping is what he does, you have no control of him. As soon as you leave the ground, you cannot change his direction in midair. And not only that, but as soon as he hits the apex of his jump, he sinks. He sinks like my self-esteem if you don't subscribe to the channel. This ain't your grandpa's classic Sonic, he is literally worse in every way possible. And if the rampant nostalgia baiting to do with this character wasn't enough, every classic stage in this game has this awful chiptune sound font on it. It genuinely sounds like I'm trying to cheese grate my foot. More on the rat later. S rank. After we finish playing with the spiky blue ball of misery, it's time to return to Snot, as we find out, and this is no joke, that he did not have the guts to take a life. And that is it. That is all the backstory we get for this guy. Which is fine, because this is a character who sucks, brings nothing to the game, and we will never see him again. God life's relentless. Next cutscene time and Rouge appears, suddenly the game is really, really good. And speaking of cutscenes, here's a line befitting of this cinematic masterpiece of a game.
None of this is good, Vector. That's why it's called war.
I never thought I would hear a shallow attempt at explaining the agonies of war coming from the mouth of Knuckles the Echidna. Anyway, we are back with Snock. In space! And apparently, we have to go save the prisoner of war, who, may I remind you, is Sonic the Hedgehog. Sonic the Hedgehog is the prisoner of war. This level is just like, whatever. It has a pretty good song, but with most of the OC's songs, it has these lyrics in it that are just so quiet and leave no impact whatsoever compared to every other lyrical Sonic song ever. And the 2D section. My god, the 2D section. It just doesn't make sense. It doesn't feel like this is part of the environment that the game takes place in. It just looks like a Mario Maker level, which is fine for, you know, a Mario Maker level, but in a big game like this? No way. We got a big A rank on this one. After months of intense torture, a horrible experience which can only be likened to hell on Earth. Sonic is perfectly fine. There is not a scratch on him, and he's cracking jokes.
Party started. Want to let me go and join in? No? Of course not. You hate fun.
Shanice.
Yeah?
Your mouth is moving a lot like a rat. Yappa, 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 yappa. Shut it, please.
Mr. Tortured by the KGB has a boss fight now, and much like my life, this game has peaked very early. This is the best boss fight in the game. Despite the fact that it only has 4 attacks and takes 3 hits, and I did it without taking damage.
No!
Sonic, that was sick. This was a very easy S rank, and while we're here speaking of S ranks, this game makes me sit through hundreds of clothing unlocks that Snock can wear after each level. It feels like an eternity. Imagine if this game didn't have this. Its runtime is already a joke, but imagine it without the 2 minutes of unlocks after every level, which by the way, are longer if you get an S rank. I'm not going to use these clothes, so this game is actively punishing me for getting an S rank. I'm going insane next level. God damn, this was the best level so far. Was it good? No, it's pretty much the exact same level as before, except you can boost, and Sonic has these rail grinding sections instead of the drifting bits that the OC had. Also, this is a strange point, but I didn't know where else to put it. I do not like Sonic in this game. And if you can't tell, I'm a big fan of the guy. Just look at my cool pajamas. But in this game, Sonic just doesn't shut up. Sonic is a jokey, hyperactive, talkative character, but when it's time to get serious, he gets serious. Now this game is pretending to be serious, it's pretending to be gritty, but then Sonic just jokes every 2 minutes. Sonic's character creates this strange tonal whiplash where the game is taking its stupid story so seriously, but then Sonic acts as jokey and cool as possible so Sega can just sell loads of toys out of it. And it sucks. Anyway, level was pretty decent. I got an ah! It's time for stage number 7, and that means it's finally time for Sonic and Snock to link up like the heat in their prime as we get to play with both of them at the same time. Not in that way, get your mind out of the gutter. The duo levels are the best kind of level in the game. They're still mid, but they're the best kind of level in the game. This gameplay style is actually somewhat interesting compared to the others. You control both characters at the same time, but one of them is the leader. If you boost, Sonic will become the leader. If you use the Wispon, the OC becomes the leader. And while the system is fun and actually usable, it just goes to show the weakness of Sonic and the OC's respective kits. These levels feel better because when you're playing, you actually have a full set of moves that let you traverse through the level. Which is strange because there's no original moves here. You can only do things that Sonic and the OC can do on their own. So these levels just serve to highlight the fact that both Sonic and the OC have half-baked movesets, and when you smash them together, only then is a competently designed character created. Also in these levels there's a thing called a double boost, which is where you have to do a quick QTE and then you get an auto-scroller section where you just have to run forward. The funniest thing is, you can fail the QTE. I mean, what is the point of having a QTE if all that happens is it still happens anyway? I suppose we did get some good memes out of it though. Like I mentioned earlier, the OC also has these forced drifting areas. They are just so bad, bro. What are you doing? The game just takes away all control as it forces you to turn a corner. And then you have the tiniest amount of input, whether you move left or right while still turning the corner. It just doesn't feel good. Also, it's a problem in every level, but I feel like this level especially. Can characters please shut up during the levels? They just talk constantly. No matter how fast I run, I cannot run away from them and it makes me upset.
Yappa, 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 yappa.
I got an A rank because I died to this. Somehow, running through a power station got us to this neon jungle thing, so that's cool, I guess. And it's time for a Sonic-only level in the neon mystery jungle, which makes you platform, which I'm sure you're noticing a pattern by now, also sucks. Sonic is just so heavy, and like classic Sonic, you also can't change his direction in midair, making landing on the platforms impossible. Genuinely, it is easier to land on a small platform with this than this. Let that sink in. Other than the terrible platforming, this stage is just okay. It's very pretty, but it's still just a corridor to boost through. Yet again, enemies are lined up along the way, but they provide no threat. They're gonna get bowled over. There are even these flamingo enemies who run away from you. What do they provide to the level? They don't provide any threat. They're just here to make Sonic look fast, even though all I'm doing is holding square. I'll give this stage one thing though. Great music. In terms of rank, I got another Stage 9, and it's time for our very first encounter with our new big bad Infinite. I'm gonna be honest, I'm not too excited to fight him. I don't particularly have a reason to. He's only hurt Sonic a bit. What possible reason do I have to hate him? Why is he opping with Silver? It's time to throw hands. Infinite's theme goes insanely hard. And this boss fight has a very nice remix of it. I like it a lot. Unfortunately though, this fight does not live up to its great music. It's not a bad fight by any means. It's just whatever. It's a typical Sonic chase boss with some classic Sonic Forces jank. One thing I do really like about these Infinite fights, however, is that when you get hit by him, he puts you under this hallucination state where more attacks come at you and you're more likely to get hit again. I can't show you this because I did this fight without getting hit, but trust me, it's true. This boss fight is also kind of broken though. You catch up to Infinite before he gets a chance to attack. Even without boost. This is how I beat him. I beat him with no hits. So this fight's kind of mediocre, but it also doesn't work properly, so it's bad, I guess? Also, no one ever explains why there's just a giant snake in the sky. We're running on a giant snake. Why is it here? I beat Infinite with a smoking sexy style. As if this game hasn't disappointed me enough, Sonic Forces continues to let me down by using one of my least favourite video game tropes of all time. Sonic wins the boss fight. And in my case, Sonic wins the boss fight without taking a single hit, and then proceeds to get his ass kicked in the very next cutscene. At least this has only happened once. We aren't at Xenoblade 2 levels yet. Oh, and then we get hit with another terrible trope. Infinite says the tired old, "You aren't even worth finishing off." Oh, thank you, you My Chemical Romance furry OC looking ass. So, if you can't tell from the gist of it so far, Sonic Forces isn't really a game that vibes with me, and while it offers so little, I have so much to say about it. So much to say that while playing it, I made some one-line notes, and I had 15 pages of notes. And then when converting the video into a script, it kinda dawned on me that this is gonna be too big of a project to put in just one video. So, I'm gonna split it in 3 parts. And this is where I'm gonna love you and leave you for this part, because this game has given me too much trauma today. I'm gonna have to see you later. So you better subscribe, because if you think I am annoyed at this game now, oh sweet baby Jesus, just you wait, because it gets much worse. So leave a like for my suffering, subscribe for my suffering, and you might as well leave a comment while you're there. Bye!